You're listening to TJ's One of Us for the Always Next Year Podcast Studio Network. You can find the team on our Twitter at ANY Podcast. You can also find us on our website, www.alwaysnextyearpodcast.com. And now, to bring us in, the Jackdaws.
A fighting man I used to be, revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and such eager my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son still had me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.
All right, we're here with a late night edition of TJ's One of Us. We've got myself, Scott, and Shane back on the show. I was out for last week. Shane, how's it going over there?
It is all things good. All things are good. Shitty night for LA over there where you are.
Yeah, so to put this in perspective, we're recording immediately after the Dodgers just completely shit the bed and lost in the divisional round of the MLB playoffs. And shit the bed is the only way to describe that. They're up 3-1, and then Clayton Kershaw gave up 2 home runs.
Back to back. Which
consecutive pitches. Like
the Dodgers organization so badly wants him to be something he has proven time and time again he is not. It's like, how many more times do you want to put him in this position? That's absurd. Dave Roberts, but not that this is a baseball podcast, but man, it's fresh on the mind right now after just sitting there and watching that, jaw dropping.
It is. And yeah, I mean, the weirdest part about this too now, I mean, we all hate the Nats and, don't want to see them succeed, but they just hit a grand slam to win, in the top of the 10th inning of a, deciding game in the playoffs. And there's no emotion around any of it. And it was a very strange ending to a baseball game or any sporting event for that matter. So still don't really know how to feel about that. And I'll definitely be thinking about this for a couple days now, even though it has no real appeal to my life.
No, none at all. I mean, I'm not a Dodgers fan, obviously. Also, obviously not a Nats fan. But I told you in text before we got on, it was very, very much 2010 when Michael Layton allowed that goal that I still have no idea how it found the net. And nobody knew. And it was just a bizarre and very dramatic and awful ending to an otherwise really great year for the Flyers. Similarly to Michael A. Taylor diving, which hell of a play, by the way. Nice closing speed on that, but just, it was weird. Everything about that, just weird.
Yeah, and I think weird is just a great way to describe it, but I'll tell you what's not weird. The Sixers are back, Shane.
I am so happy.
Yeah. So I know the Sixers are back for a few reasons. You would say it comes to mind, there was media day, we had the blue and white game. It also came up time to pay for NBA League Pass recently. That's really how I know the NBA is back, when you get that charge on the credit card, and nothing gets me more excited to pay for League Pass. So I am in 100% basketball mode now. So let's start talking a little bit about what's happened since we last had you on the show. And let's start with Media Day. So Media Day started, and we got some interviews of Joel Embiid leading up to that. He kind of just came out of just his darkness. It seemed like, sorry, I had to close a window in my room there. Apologize for that noise. But so Joel Embiid just seemed to go into darkness this offseason and just shut himself off from social media, shut himself off from the general media. And he's back and he's doing interviews. Media Day, he did an interview on Lowe's podcast that I had listened to. And it was very interesting to hear Joel Embiid talk about, just what he did this offseason to get better and to reflect. The biggest thing that I took away from it, and this is something we've discussed at length before, is Joel Embiid wants to be the guy that gets the ball in the last minute of the game. Shane, how do you feel about that?
Uh, One, I want my superstars, no matter who they may be, whether it's Joel Embiid, whether it's Ben Simmons. I want them to want the basketball. There's a passiveness that kind of comes across the city of Philadelphia that very few athletes have, that like, give me the ball or give me the puck or like, let's let this rest on me. So that to me immediately, as if Joel Embiid, hasn't already endeared himself to the city of Philadelphia and this fan base enough already. That's a really welcoming thing that just furthers that endearing process for me. However, the logical portion of me sees how loose he is with the basketball, and there's a lot that he needs to clean up in effort to make good on that. The fact that he wants to be that, he's fortunate enough to play along, I would say, a very different starting five, and he alluded to it in some of his interviews, where he is gonna be the guy. It's gonna be him and probably Tobias Harris. So if they want or need a perimeter shot, it's Toby. If they just need one or two, well, he's going to be down low and he's going to have to learn quick. So I loved the fact that he wants the basketball, and I'm curious to see what kind of work he has put in the offseason and how much he gets that opportunity this season early on.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I need Joel Embiid to want the ball at all times, but the thing that made it impressive to me is this was the first time in the Lowe's podcast interview I mentioned and a couple other interviews he did that there seemed to be a different level of maturity in Joel Embiid. He did come out and do the superstar thing and say he wants to be the guy in crunch time, and he's been working with Brett Brown on that. They're all in agreement in it. Whether you agree in that or not, he also came out and gave some very just mature responses to times when Lowe or anyone else would try and prompt him into talking shit about a different player or saying something about playing with Ben Simmons or Al Horford now. And he was just extremely articulate for a guy that just first language isn't English. And I forget that a lot.
He speaks like 7 languages, dumbass, as he said last year, which is still brilliant.
It's unbelievable. The guy should absolutely have more credit for that. But it was just extremely well thought out, like to the point where like I heard it and was like, oh my God, like I forgot how much I like Joel Embiid as a person, along with the fact that he throws down on the basketball court. I mean,
oh yeah,
I could not be more excited about him. The other thing that he did, and ironically, it was a pattern in like every single Sixers interview, he is vowing for the Defensive Player of the Year award. So with that in mind, and with the fact that Ben Simmons went out for that, Brett Brown talked about them having the best defense. Josh Richardson talked about going for the Defensive Player of the Year award. Just everyone did. What would you put the odds at Joel Embiid winning the Defensive Player of the Year award?
I would say about as good as it can get. I would say he'll be somewhere in the top 3 early ranking there in terms of odds. And I think for 2 reasons. One, obviously the fact that he dropped 20 pounds, originally dropped 25 pounds and then put 5 back on of muscle because he's just a freak. But 2, the length and versatility of everyone in that starting 5. And then as you get deeper into the bench as well, he's not going to be called upon to do so much night in and night out. Every minute he's on the floor, he's going to have another big there in Al Horford, who no matter what Marcus Smart says, he's still a valuable big. Maybe not your prototypical 5, but good enough. And then again, obviously with Jay Rich out there, Ben Simmons with his length, and then Tobias Harris, who also leaned out. He looks really good, by the way, Tobias Harris. Always kind of felt like, he always kind of just, I don't want to say like a thin blob, but he kind of looked like a thin blob. Like there was just like no tone to him at all. But with all those bodies around him, he is going to be able to. It's just even those moments where he kind of falters or takes a risk or isn't necessarily in the perfect spot. I don't think that you're going to see the kind of damage that you would have seen last year or 2 years ago, because they're just simply that long and all defensive minded. They are so bought into this process so early on. It's impressive.
Yeah, and I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. We still have a couple things to talk about, but I can't get it out of my mind that at the start of the game the Sixers had in China against the Gongzhou. I can't pronounce it. I don't want to butcher the name. The Chinese basketball we played the other day. The first thing that was said about the Sixers as soon as the opening tip went off is, God, this team's gigantic. They're huge. Like, and it's unavoidable. They're going to be saying that every single game. Like, it's going to be akin to how every time there's a turnover in the NFL for the last 5 years, they remind us that every single turnover is reviewed. They're going to keep saying this over and over again because the Sixers are long as shit. We reported on this 3 months ago. Like, and we can keep reporting on it now, and it's not going to change. They're still the longest team in the NBA.
Yeah, it's absurd. Every single time I see a picture of them too, it's weird. And I don't know if you're like this, but like I have to process things visually in a way that makes sense to me. And I sit there and I'm like, man, like how do you line these five up for a photo where it makes sense? They've had Joe sitting as the tallest person. I'm like, all right, well that kind of makes sense. But then everyone else is like out of order and it's like awkward. And then most recently they had the five of them standing before walking onto the court for that game against the Chinese basketball team that was in town. And like none of that made sense. And then I realized what doesn't make sense is human beings aren't supposed to be that fucking tall. It's insane how much length, and their arms are like abnormally long. It's insane.
They're so weird. You know how like it's a Reddit thing, right, to have a banana for scale in the picture. I feel like the Sixers need a banana for scale, or maybe just like an average sized white guy. I'll volunteer for it if they want. I'll stand in all the pictures. But we need to understand how long they are and how defensive minded the Sixers are. I think opponents might average 82 points a game this year. Like it is unbelievable. So let's move on to the next guy that wants to win the defensive MVP award, or defensive player of the year, excuse me. I don't know why I just changed the name of it. Ben Simmons. So Ben Simmons was the talk of media day, and for literally only one reason. No one really wanted to talk to him about anything else other than his 3-point jump shot, which I'm quite sick of, to be perfectly honest.
Same.
You know what? Like I've gone on record before by saying I don't think he needs a 3-point jumper. I think you've said the exact opposite of that. Andrew last week had said he needs one. You know, I don't think it really matters. If that's what we're talking about and that's his biggest issue, I'm okay with it. However, the Philadelphia media and the NBA media in general still feel like this is a relevant thing to bring up. Like, I was real happy with how Ben handled the media and basically just kind of blew him off and was like, I don't want to answer any more questions about this. I'm going to shoot threes when they happen. I'm not going to force it. Like, can we just move on and talk about something else? Please bring up one of the Jenners or something. Like, I don't want to talk about my 3-point shooting. Like, there was a pretty solid video of a little kid just enamored by Ben draining a couple threes that came up during media day.
That was hilarious.
That was great. So props to whoever got that video recorded for us. I enjoyed it and watched it like 50 times.
Same.
Yeah. And yeah, so one of the things though that Ben was able to actually get in was he and a lot of the other Sixers said the same thing, but I like Ben's comments the most about Matisse Thybulle. And he had brought up in the blue and white game, they were asking him, you know, how's Matisse looking?
Second quarter comment.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, he's a nightmare on defense, or whatever the exact wording of it was hilarious. But it just captured perfectly how that's the biggest report to me coming out of camp right now. As much as I want to say our boy Zhaire has been awesome, which he has been, and everyone has said that same thing, without fail, every Sixer has mentioned how good Matisse has looked out on the floor, how impressive he is defensively, and I'm very, very excited to have him out there coming off the bench.
Yeah, man. I honestly, with the kinds of reports that we're hearing, and it coming from not just Sixers players and Sixers coaching staffs and training staffs, and not just beat reporters locally, but like he's getting recognition absolutely everywhere. So like pretty soon we're going to have to make our new shtick like Matisse Thybulle, the 6.5 best player in the NBA, because he might be just a bit ahead of what Zhaire Smith is, no matter how much we love Zhaire Smith, which, by the way, I'm working at a new place helping out a buddy, and one of the other guys that works there, I started every single time I would see anything Zhaire Smith related, I would state, oh, that's the 7th best player in the NBA. And this kid thought, like, have you never watched basketball before? And I'm like, have you never watched basketball before? He's literally the 7th best player in the NBA. So we're doing our part here on TJ's One of Us. But yeah, making it all make sense. Thibault. I'm so happy. Like, we've had to piece together benches, or like last year, strengthen and bulk up our starting rotation and our starting unit, and just hope in a prayer that Mike Scott and James Ennis somehow just work. And we have so much depth this year because of reports like this. Matisse Thybulle adds an extra layer of security to your team. And I can't be any more excited for him, for Zhaire, Hole Neto and Trey Burke, who went at each other in their last stop, and they're going at each other again here. It's so good for the team, and I just can't be more excited.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The bench is another huge story coming out of this. We're stacked. I mean, everyone knows how good the starters are. We just went on for 5 minutes, literally just about how tall they are, and didn't have to mention how freakishly athletic and good at basketball they all are. Like, we all know that, right? The bench was a bit of a question mark. We're trying to see how they go in, and the way that Brett Brown stacks lineups out on the floor is still to be determined, but in a good way. I mean, Brett Brown came out and had said, I'm there to let the best guy take the backup point guard job, which is a huge deal. We need to make sure that the backup point guard job is secured. But the fact that we have people vying for that spot and we have options is unbelievable. I mean, Neto, Burke, like our boy Shake, who we haven't even really had to talk much about. Josh Richardson might be able to play point guard a little bit too. And
Josh Richardson is the backup point guard at this point, and the other guys are just filling in as that second guard.
Yeah, it's a great problem to have, and I'm very impressed with the bench. One thing I'm not impressed with, though, is our boy, the Swell. He's got an injury, isn't getting time right now. I'm a little worried about Norvell. He did play in the Chinese game, but reports were out at the beginning of media day and first couple days of practice that our boy hurt his ankle. So shouts to the Swell. We had talked a little bit about this offline too, that he doesn't have social media. We need to reach out to him. If I'm just an idiot and can't search his name correctly on Twitter,
I couldn't find him either, man.
Yeah, I'm worried about the Swell. I need to get in contact with him.
What if he's just going on a cleanse?
I'm all for that. He's worried about making the team and making himself known. But
yeah, maybe he finds a way to scratch into this roster, and then makes his return to social media. I can't imagine how a 20-something-year-old guy doesn't have social media. I mean, you and I hate social media, and we have it.
Yeah,
there's no way this kid doesn't.
Complete spin zone on it though. The Swell, I'm your biggest
nice reference.
fan. If you need me to manage your social media for you, I'm not going to do a good job, but I'm happy to. All I ask is that you hook me and Shane up with, I don't know, like 3 sets of tickets. That's it.
I think that's a good
fair. Trade. Yeah, not asking too much, right? So offer stands. If anyone can get us in touch with them, let me know. So yeah, I mean the bench is looking great. Zhaire, I haven't heard enough about him, which doesn't make me nervous, right? I think no one is as amped as him as we are, but he's going to be a crucial part of the bench. And the way that him and Thibault seem to be, getting along so well and going at each other a little bit in practice, and kind of hanging out and stuff like that, that is also promising to me. They're working on getting better together. They're playing a somewhat similar role. But yeah, I'm thrilled with what's happened with him. The other thing, too, that has been strange to me, and I don't know when I'm going to get over it this year. Maybe it'll be game 1. Maybe it'll be game 10. Maybe it won't be until, we're in the Eastern Conference Finals. I don't know. But Al Horford is in a Sixers jersey. I repeat, Al Horford is in a Sixers jersey. We're paying this guy to play with us. It is crazy to me.
What's the last athlete that you can think of that probably has this strange of a welcoming into a new city, leaving that kind of a route? I was trying to think of one here in Philadelphia, and the closest that I could come up with was when Jagr came back to the NHL and decided to sign with Philadelphia Flyers. I was like, well, that was strange at first, but he's freaking Jaromir Jagr. Al Horford is certainly not as sexy as Jaromir Jagr and his wonderful flow, but he's still a damn good basketball player. But I can't think of another time where it's kind of happened. I mean, I guess you could theoretically say Bryce Harper, but I feel like people hated him.
Answer, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like people hated him because it was the cool thing to do. He's baseball's villain versus Mike Trout, who's baseball's just wet dream. Yeah. But it's just, I don't know.
Johnny Damon was the first name that came to mind, just because
that's a good one.
Literally jumped ship. Yeah. But I think the weird part is Al Horford's he's not vocal and active, and someone that if you asked 10 Sixers fans last year before we knew Horford was on our team who their most hated player was, I don't think any of them are saying Al Horford.
Yeah, they are. Are you kidding me? All right, well, hold on. Hated players versus who are your biggest Sixers killers? Because he's on that starting
different
5.
Question. Yeah, no, you're that
that's
I can
fair.
see. Yeah, I guess it's just I don't know, that he stays out of the limelight, doesn't just kind of does it. I mean, I called him basics for God's sake before. That's telling of my opinions on him. Yeah, I'm really not giving up on these nicknames, if you guys can tell. So yeah, let's move on a little bit past media day. I was happy with everything that came out. Let's talk about this game in China. And before we do that, I do want to give the ANYP official statement on China games. Don't worry, Shane, I'm not going to get political for a second. I'm going to do a little Michael Scott thing here. So Steph Curry had a great quote before, earlier today. He'd said, "This situation, there's a huge weight and gravity to it. There's going to need to be some things to be sorted out. Just don't know enough about Chinese history and how that's influenced modern society. This is not going away, so we'll come back to it." Steph Curry, Scott Novick. You can say it too if you want, Shane. I'll throw your name in there. We're going to copy his statement. And we're not going to get back to it, though. That's a lie. I am amazed that we live in a world right now where Donald Trump is talking about Steve Kerr and calling him a bitch, basically. It is crazy to me that I have to, number one, take time out of my day to read about international relations mixed in with the NBA. It's so strange to me. I can't comprehend it. I don't want to share opinions on this topic. I don't think this is the time or place for it. But I also feel we wouldn't be doing our service as as media or members of the media if we did not mention something like this. Do you have any thoughts on it, Shane, or you think that covers it?
No, I think you said that pretty well. There are certain things that I don't want to say that we're not qualified to speak on. I do feel as though everyone is technically qualified to speak on all these things. And you're right in a certain way, using your platform to sit here and speak on those issues. However, I got to think the people listening to our shows don't particularly want to hear our opinions on this because no one asked for the original opinions on this to begin with. So it's, I think bizarre is the best word I can use right now. And mixing those two, what should be so unrelated things together is just bizarre.
It is, and I gotta be honest, the only reason I really brought it up at all is I thought of that Michael Scott line earlier today, and I laughed to myself, so I had to say it on the show. So moving on, the Sixers played in China. I mentioned a little bit before that immediately upon starting in the game, literally all anyone talked about was how giant they all are, and it is so true. The Sixers starting five is gigantic. Literally, as the conversation started, Ben Simmons threw down a dunk. I think Ben looked incredible out there in the first half. You know, he was running the floor. He looks a little buffer too to me as well. Like, you know, people are just talking about the 20 pounds Joel lost, and I think Ben Simmons. I mean, he's always kind of a jacked guy, but I think he went out there and somehow managed to get in better shape too. I don't know, or maybe he just grew got a little older. I don't know. He looks great physically. He looks great from a mature level. He's running the floor. He's controlling the floor. He's involving himself in all aspects of basketball. I'm as impressed as you can be from watching him play a Chinese basketball team that is on a different level. I guess the other thing too, and I've been waiting when to talk about this. Ben Simmons hit a three at the end of the second quarter. It was a monumental moment because Ben got to flash up a big smile and the crowd was chanting for him to shoot up this three, and he drained it. It looked good. He didn't have his gloves on. I checked. I looked all over the film. I watched it 100 times. I was pumped for him. You know, the Sixers were pumped for him. The opposing team was pumped for him. It was weirdly like an incredible moment for basketball. I've never.
He lifted an entire city up.
Yeah, seriously. Like it was impressive. It was the shot heard around the world that meant literally nothing. Like
oh yeah.
So we're all happy for you, Ben. Thanks for shooting the three. Hope that's, you know, the first of many. So before we get much further in, I mean, that was obviously the biggest thing that happened in the game. How do you view these kind of exhibitions, Shane? Because we've got a couple more coming up for the next couple weeks, and I'm always torn on how to look at this kind of stuff.
I mean, games against, you know, the Long Lions are like football games against Rice, you know, in college. It's just like, well, whose ass can we kick to feel good about ourselves? You know, whose ass can we kick to sit there while we go out there and we work through the kinks of a reconstructed roster as no team remains 100% the same year in, year out. You know, so those are important games, more so obviously for the NBA caliber teams than what it is for the Long Lions. But I mean, I'm sure it's important for them in their own right as well. And, you know, for, you know, their hometown and things like that, it's probably pretty cool. We do know that the NBA is a global game, so, or at least global fan base. But then as you get back into, you know, exhibition games, you know, obviously against other NBA caliber teams, it's weird. It's not quite to the level of the NFL. Like the NFL is absurd. There is absolutely no reason for a preseason at all anymore. The product is terrible. But I want to say it's like a mix between, oh, cool, this is an exhibition game, and oh, this is All-Star Weekend, because no one's playing true lockdown defense, with the exception of the rookies who need to prove themselves. You know, but for the most part, when you get guys, you know, even if it's just their second year, they're kind of coasting through these games, and it's more of a conditioning stint than anything. So it's weird, you know. I like it for stuff with like Matisse and even Zhaire this year. Mariel Shayok, the ugliest sports figure in Philadelphia history, second to Tyrone Hill. Obviously the swell. It's interesting for guys like that. But when you take a look at it for the Bens and Joes and, you know, even, you know, Jay Rich and Toby, I don't want to say it means nothing, but it's like, shit, are you in good enough shape to play or not? Like, if you're good, just sit your ass down. So I don't know. How do you feel about them?
Not too different than that, but I say that I'm torn on it just because in my heart of hearts, I know this game means nothing, right? Aside from me just getting excited that the NBA is back, and I'm thrilled about watching, you know, my Sixers out on the court. I get to see those new jerseys in action, which are just complete fire. I love them. But at the same time, though, I'm a Philadelphia sports fan, and I love to overreact about things. I was looking at the stat line after the game because I didn't get to watch all of it live. I just got to check some of the highlights and watch the abbreviated version. And quite frankly, that's probably all anyone really needs to do. Aside from Andrew Nicholson from the Long Lions, who had 36 points and played 40 minutes. What the hell is that guy doing playing 40 minutes in an exhibition game? But that was the most shocking thing I picked up from the stat line. I might watch the whole game now just because of that. But I see things like Tobias Harris only scoring 7 points, but then I look at his plus minus of 36 and go, okay, like that's ridiculous. Like
lockdown defense.
Exactly. Just
number one defender.
Tobias Harris. Points. Like to me, I love to overreact to that and be like, oh shit, he's not gonna score. Like he's locked out of the offense. Ben Simmons might just score 50 points every night. Like he scored 21 in 21 minutes. Like, but those aren't realistic conclusions. It's just me being illogical. They're just fun games to watch. I'll be excited for this one, excited for the next one, and I'll pretty much be done with the preseason. Let's get the regular season out there. I don't want to see any of our guys get hurt. Yeah, that's basically my thoughts on it. But I do think it's cool that they do these international games. Gets the guys out there, gets them, reaching out to a different fan base. And I think they enjoy it too. They like going out there and interacting with everyone. Like I don't know if it's a media stunt thing or like the guys.
No, I think it's bringing global recognition to your game and allowing. I mean, think about it. Obviously, we see the means that athletes have now, with the contracts that they have. But I mean, how many of these guys do you genuinely think travel outside the country for, I would say any more or less than what we do? I mean, imagine playing in Major League Baseball or playing in the NBA and you're playing a 6-7 month long or, season, and then you got to rest and recoup. You've been away from your family a lot. You probably want to just relax. Before you know it, you got to go to training camp again. This allows these guys the opportunity to go out there and experience different cultures and stuff as well, and interact with fan bases who fucking adore them, and they don't even know. I think it's pretty cool. We just saw it with the Flyers in Prague. We see it with the NFL going to London 4 or 5 times a year, whatever it is. I think it's cool, attempting to make, these each one of the North American sports products globally recognized. It's interesting to me.
Yeah, I agree. And on top of that too, I just thought of it as you were mentioning. A lot of these guys are from different countries, and
oh yeah,
they're getting a chance to either go home and play somewhere or to reach out to another fan base and like do a service to a kid similar to what I would imagine another athlete did to them. Yeah, like
I don't think actually last year's starting lineup to start the season, I don't think there was one like actual just American. Actually, no, I guess Robert Covington, right? Yeah, you got, who was it last year? You had Dario, Ben, Joe. JJ. Who the hell else? JJ wasn't initially starting.
No, that's true. Markelle Fultz.
Oh, fucking Markelle Fultz was. That's another topic we'll talk about. Yeah.
And actually, fuck it. We're going to drop this preseason game. TLDR, it was awesome. Ben shot a 3. That was it. Like,
dude, his interview was fantastic after the game.
It was.
How like teenagers, when they first become teenagers, have to act cool?
Yeah.
Like, because it's the thing to do.
Yep.
23-year-old Ben Simmons or whatever he is sitting there at the podium afterwards, just headphones over his head, So you pulled up and you took a 3. Is there a reason why he did that? No, it's shot's open. You got to take the shot. And like, that was it. Like, dude, inside he's just like, I hit a fucking 3. Everyone's gonna stop talking now. This is the greatest day of my life as a pro. It was just funny.
Was every middle school boy after their first kiss going back to his buddies to be like, what's up? Yeah, you guys ever do that? It's cool, I guess. Like,
it's all right.
It's not a big deal. Yeah. Yeah, I'm real happy for Ben, and his media presence is awesome now too.
He's great.
So yeah, he's the most talked about guy in the NBA, but the second most talked about guy, and that's not true. This is an overreaction. Is Markelle Fultz, who we just mentioned was a starter on the Sixers last year. So we actually haven't talked much since he signed his crazy 2-year deal for $22 million, $21 million.
Yeah, I'm pretty unsure as to why. What could he have possibly done whilst not practicing with the team to give them that kind of hope that he could, I don't know, be a true NBA player? And this is two Markelle Fultz fans here talking. Like, we hope to God this kid corrects himself, but why give him money?
Yeah, I don't get that. I mean, secure the bag, Markelle, right? I don't know what you did. Like, you have the greatest manager in the world. I don't know how he's been pulling this shit off, but he definitely has.
I mean, agent, but yeah. Raymond Brothers is a total ass.
Yeah, true. But so Markelle Fultz, the guy who forgot how to shoot, who was a huge joke and has not played real minutes ever, was worth $10 million each year for the Orlando Magic. And then this guy goes out and just immediately looks good for the Magic. What the hell? Like,
he does not look good.
Where did that come from?
He does not look good.
This is the Philadelphia fan of me, Shane. I overreact from preseason games, and that was why I mentioned that before. And I'm fully in overreact mode about Markelle Fultz. Other people are treating him nicely; they're all happy about it. But then there's like a little jab at the Sixers saying, they gave up on this guy. We never really gave up on him. I don't think that's a fair assessment. But I'm just very surprised as to what he's gonna do. And everyone is just forgetting about the last couple of years, what happened with him. So this has been a very confusing last couple of weeks for me in dealing with Markelle Fultz.
I think the confusing thing has been about the Magic's message, not only to their own fan base, but to the NBA's fan base as a whole. I mean, their GM came out like 3 weeks ago and was like, we don't really know when he's going to see the floor again. Like, after he had given the guy $22.5 million or whatever it is. It's like, we're not sure if he's ready for the start of the season yet. We're not in constant contact or in constant communication with this kid. Like, what the hell are you talking about? Then all of a sudden he shows up and they're like, we're going to put out a hype tape. Like, yeah. Okay, I guess this is happening. And then he plays in both preseason games. And it's like, first of all, he still is the hitch. I still don't know what's going on with that. It's absolutely bizarre. And I think that you and I would look good on an NBA floor against some of the people that have been guarding Markelle, so far through two very early preseason games. I don't want to shit on the kid to shit on him. It's not just poo on Markelle. I genuinely hope that he gets the opportunity in Orlando to revitalize what should have been a really promising NBA career. But you're an ass, and I dislike you right now.
Yeah, I agree. I'm confused. I'm hurt a little bit. I'm kind of hungry. I don't know what's going on. Like, it's been strange in terms of Markelle Fultz, and I don't want to end. We're getting closer to the end here. I don't want to end talking about Markelle Fultz and being upset, because it's been a great couple of weeks for the Sixers, right? I am just noticing now, and this is probably a little dip or a dive into the mind of Scott, and I feel like you have similar thoughts, Shane. Is our show this summer has been a lot more about the rest of the NBA, because the Sixers all went off the grid after our loss to the Raptors, which I don't want to get back into. We don't need to, but everyone seemed to be on the same page. We all need to get better. We need to get more mature. We need to improve as a team. Need to improve as individuals. And none of them talked to anyone. They all, just worked on their game, worked on their bodies, got healthy, and they're all back, and they look great. I could not be happier after a media day. I don't ever remember being this excited after a media day, except for maybe the early process stages. And that was more just because I had way too much time.
Can you imagine if we got this thing right? I love Brett Brown.
Yeah, me too. Brett, he's like also taken on a new level of maturity. I don't think maturity is the right sense, but like, he's real comfortable as a coach now. I mean, how many years has he been the coach of the Sixers? Can't remember.
This is sixth,
five or six. Okay, yeah. I mean, so he sounds comfortable in front of the mic too. Like, he looks like a guy who's been there before. He's not acting, because
what I like about it.
Yeah.
Not to cut you off. This is one of the things that I really dug about this media day. There's always, some like disingenuous notion about most responses that you get. And most things are really vanilla, and they really hold back some of their, I don't know, more like media bomb type of responses where you're like, oop, that's a story and we're going to run with this forever. Most teams avoid that in their media days, and it's kind of dull. You had Brett Brown out there saying, I want that number 1 seed. You had Joel Embiid for the second straight year saying, last year was I'm coming for the MVP. This year is I'm coming for the defensive player of the year. Ben Simmons echoed that same thing. Richardson echoed that same thing. They weren't afraid to sit there and put the highest of high expectations, both on their individual performances and the team as a whole. Like they were 4 doinks away from 5 more minutes of life last season. And who knows what would have happened beyond that point. And that obviously didn't sit well with them. And they're freaking letting us know. They're letting the media know, and they're not holding that back. And like we can tell here in Philadelphia, probably more so than most sports markets, when you're disingenuous. I believe everything that was said in every one of those responses. And that to me was probably hands down my favorite part of the last 2 weeks.
That was extremely well said, and I think that is the perfect transition into our favorite segment of this and every show, Zhaire's stache. So, while we were on the topic of, our Sixers coming back into the media, let's talk about Joel Embiid showing back up with this crazy new hairstyle. He had two different forms of it coming up. He had, or 3 actually. He had that weird picture initially where he had the Lisa Simpson hair going on.
Hilarious.
Or Kodak Black, if you're a hip hop guy. Then he had the cornrows that made him look weirdly like Kawhi Leonard to me, which just gave me all kinds of weird feelings, and I didn't like that.
That's not who you said in the text message. You say you look like Ben Wallace. Wasn't that you? Is that someone else?
I didn't, but actually, I'm gonna stick with that because my thought was Kawhi Leonard, and I hated myself for thinking that. Clearly, that's like some stuff working in my subconscious mind, and I have not forgotten about Kawhi.
Yeah, we're
Leonard.
not over it.
No, we'll never be over it. We never are. And then he had this dope ass afro that matched the incredible jerseys when they played out in China. I was all in on that afro. It's a good look. Our boy Joel is looking trim. He's looking jacked. I'm pretty excited for this year, and I'm pretty excited for this hairstyle. But Shane, I gotta ask you, do you think Joel Embiid is better looking than the 7th best player in the NBA, Zhaire Smith?
So here's the thing. You put him in the 70s era throwback uniform that they will be wearing and sporting this season with the afro, give him some I don't know, damn near knee-high white socks. I'm going to have to say, yeah, that's a sex symbol in and of itself. That's a handsome man. Really Zhaire, you unfortunately would lose out. I am not going to say that Cornrows Joe is going to put up a fight there. We saw Cornrows Joe for a game or 2 last season in Detroit. I think it was Detroit and Charlotte, I want to say. And then I guess those cornrows were just a little too tight for him because he did not look himself. Came back out with the hair that we're all accustomed to, and then had a Joel Embiid season. But yeah, you give me that afro that he had going on. I'm for it. I am 100% for it.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I'm gonna have an internal struggle every time I watch these games, and I'm gonna end up with one of those jerseys. I just know it. I need to buy one. I won't look quite as good as our boy Joel in there, but God damn it, it is a good look, and I am so pumped up for this season. I'm almost ready to forget football right now and just go all in on basketball. I've never had that.
Totally cool. Yeah. It's weird, man. So I catch a lot of shit for this, and we've never talked about it, you and I. So obviously you and I played baseball our whole lives growing up. Baseball was almost always our number one, right? Mm-hmm. Hockey for me has always been a really close second. I absolutely love the sport of hockey. And then as I got older, I'm like, man, I want to say like 2000. I guess it was probably like 2004, like right when I was starting high school, like when I got a fake phone call, an automated phone call from the 76ers that we got Chris Webber. I was like, yeah, I'm all in. Like, this is cool. They just called me while I'm on vacation. I'm in. And I think from that point on, it was like, it was Phillies baseball, Sixers basketball, Flyers hockey, and then like Eagles football was kind of last. Those top three kind of like filter through their eras of change based on, how exciting their teams are. But the one thing that's always remained the same, even through the Super Bowl era, and I like football just as much as anyone in this country, Eagles football is always fourth to me. Is that how it is for you?
No, probably not. But I think the only reason why is because I'm not really much of a hockey guy, and the reason why is because I watch so much MMA stuff that I got to give up on one of the major sports. I mean, I can only spend like 22 hours of every day, thinking and watching sport, or thinking about and watching sports.
Where do you fit your PGA stuff in?
PGA stuff, I'm strictly a Masters guy, and then I'll hop on the Tiger train and act like I've been there for a long time every time he comes back and plays.
Ryder Cup, that's my thing.
Actually, I do like the Ryder Cup too. Yeah, and I kind of watch the PGA playoffs every year too.
That's what I'm saying.
That guy. Yeah, I
like
watch
so much comes ahead of football for me. And I love football. Yeah. I haven't missed I have not missed an Eagles football game since I think I was like 11 years old. And that's because I had a football game of my own. I still remember. But like, it's still so far down on my list of priorities in my sports week.
It is. And I've been doing this thing on Sundays when I'll watch just the Eagles game and then try to get out and do something, or not get stuck in front of the TV for like 12 hours. Because if you're watching games and sitting there hanging out with your buddies, or eating some good food, having a couple of drinks, maybe gambling a little bit, doing whatever, it's a good day. But it soaks up your whole Sunday, and it'll soak up your whole Thursday too. For whatever reason, with the NBA, to me, I'll throw it on a monitor and another monitor and work, and I'll crank out an hour or two of extra work. I mean, I hope my employer's hearing this and I get a crazy raise or something from the extra work I'm putting in during the basketball season. But
you deserve it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it'll go towards the pod. We'll come up with something cool if this somehow gets me a raise. It's not going to, so don't hold your breath, people. But so I think basketball, to me, I can do that, and I can listen to Zumov talk, and feel like I'm
he is the best announcer that we have in the city.
He's by far the best, and it gets me every time. There's nothing quite like it. That said, I can do the same thing for Phillies baseball. It's just that it's tough to watch 162 games every year. It's tough to get behind them when they're not good so often, because baseball is just a very different game. But I'll still watch it and still throw them on. The Eagles have just given us so much joy and so much heartbreak over the years that I feel like we've all developed somewhat of a numbness to it. And maybe it's just because, maybe it's just because we're not like huge football guys or we're gigantic basketball guys at this point. But I think a lot of it is just because of the past. Like, it took a lot for me to, when they won the Super Bowl, to really, really just give everything into it and accept everything that was happening and be happy. I'm such a pessimist, and I was thinking about everything. I was like, I can't get excited about this. The Sixers are the one Philadelphia team that I don't care. Every year I fall in love with them and I let them break my heart a little bit. But I don't get that upset because I'm just as excited for the next year. And nothing has changed this year. I'm as high as ever on the Sixers. And
oh yeah,
I cannot wait for this year.
I will be so quickly all in and then so quickly all out in the same game 45 times over. Basketball, and 76ers basketball in particular, is the one and only sport that Stephanie will not watch with me. So for all of you listeners who have heard and you've all asked for more guest segments with Stephanie, this is probably a segment she will not get on because she hates watching Sixers basketball with me, because I'm not a calm individual. And no other sport brings it out quite like basketball, and 76ers basketball in particular.
What you can do during the games, though, when Shane and I are both watching alone, is you can reach out to us on WhatsApp and talk with us about, Joel's hairstyle, Ben Simmons shooting threes, the dope jerseys.
If
maybe
Zhaire
talk about-
smiles and you get a little wet, we understand.
Yeah, I mean, just reach out to us. We're dying to talk to you guys more about this segment. As basketball is here, it's our time to engage with all of you and stop being silly and get into the X's and O's of the basketball here. And I want to hear what you guys have to say. So I'm going to keep pushing this WhatsApp thing. I'm excited to hear from you guys, and reach out to me on Twitter or whatever. I'm at SP Novick. Shane, what's your handle?
It's Shane_Mead.
There you go. So we're excited to start talking with you guys about Sixers basketball. And Shane, it was great having you back on the show. I mean, we had a lot of things to catch up on. It's been an exciting thing for the Sixers, exciting couple of weeks for the Sixers, and I'm pretty excited for the season going on. Do you have a closing thought for us here as we get to the end of the show?
The only closing thought that I have for you guys is for all your 76ers watching this year that you do at home, I suggest that you guys order food from Just Food. That's 215-794-FOOD, 215-794-3663. Treat yourself, take it home, visit our guy over there, Asian Rob. If you're local to me, so if you're an East Coast listener in the Philadelphia area, you can find their 2 in-store locations. One is in New Britain, PA. It's at the Delville Market. It's near Delaware Valley College. The other is in Buckingham Green Shopping Center in Bucks County, PA. So those are the 2 in-store locations. And then if you happen to be having a Sixers watch party and you want to Andre the League style, have your friends over with people to serve that food, they'll also do that for you. Great food, great people, wonderful company. Just Food, 215-794-FOOD. That's 215-794-3663. Treat yourself, take it home.
All right, so that's all we got for you here. I can't wait to get back in the next week and talk some more Sixers basketball. See you guys next week.
A fighting man I used to be, revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and so jig over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son, still happy life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.